Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mindfulness Live. This week, we're talking about the middle way of mind training, strong and flexible. For those of you who trained in Tibetan Buddhism, mind training has a very specific meaning. It's about a set of compassion exercises. That's not the way I'm using it this week. What I mean by mind training is, well, very simply, in the most secular way you can imagine how to train your mind, in compassion as well, but in many other things. And the two tools that we use here are meditation and mindfulness. And I've often spoken about the difference. I know you have ideas about the difference, but I really wanted to break it down and take a look at it and see how these two very different states of mind work together in the way that we train our minds towards a specific goal. And the whole idea of a goal is rather ambiguous, especially in Buddhism, where goal-oriented training is considered to be sort of inferior. It's a short-term benefit towards the bigger goal, which is something more expansive, something that isn't defined by goals. It's simply defined by the way that we live and the experience of being alive, what we do with it. So that's the big picture. What we're looking at is life itself. And on the way there, we discover that there are certain pitfalls for which we develop certain goals. Okay, I'm not going to be like that anymore. I'm going to be like this. But ultimately, we're trying to leave all that how I should be behind and move on to simply being just the way we are in the most natural way possible. But at the same time, with an attitude of values and knowing right from wrong and trying to do good, but at the same time understanding that these are relative terms and they can be confusing. So the Buddha summed it all up in a lovely little phrase, the middle way. And that's what we're looking at this week, the middle way. So make yourselves comfortable. Take a nice breath. And let go. And our first goal is to keep our attention on the breath. This enables you to settle down. By focusing on the breath, it relaxes all those other things that we pay attention to. All the busyness of life. And it makes this inner mental space more reachable, less muddled. The simple act of focusing. And the focus can be on the rhythm of your breathing, on the length of each in-breath and out-breath. You can count the breaths. You can look at the stops between each in and out breath. but you don't really want to move around. Pick one and stick with it. That is focus, concentration, known in Buddhism as samadhi. Follow the breath, just as you decided to. And when you lose attention, bring it straight back. Breath coming in, breath going out. Something very familiar. And yet, you look at it with new eyes because you're present, paying close attention, focusing, and turning off all the other input as much as possible. Feeling the breath and feeling your attention grow stronger. Taking 3 more breaths. Open your eyes. We often talk about noting. I mentioned it last week. And it's the act of, in that moment that you know you've been distracted and you realize I have to go back to the breath, it's just taking that time to note what distracted you. Okay, that's a mindfulness exercise. It's a long-term thing. We're building a bigger picture here. The simple training of concentration, the samadhi exercises, are much tighter. When you lose concentration, you go straight back to the object, in this case, the breath. Because the object can be anything. It can be an image of the Buddha, which is very common in Tibetan Buddhism. But the point is you cultivate samadhi concentration by focusing on a single object. And there's nothing complicated about it. There are 2 things that you have to worry about. One is becoming listless and sleepy and sort of heavy-minded, and the other one is getting overexcited. And the burden of sitting still and focusing is so much that your brain is just dying to get out there and play. Think about movies and food and people, whatever. Okay. So these are the 2 obstacles, and the solution to that is come straight back to your object of concentration. It's very militaristic. I mean, it's like boot camp in a way. You just sit there and do it. My old friend Alan Wallace, he used to be a friend, who's a big meditation teacher now. He actually suggests that in order to achieve that state of complete samadhi, the real absorptions, the jhanas of Buddhism, that you must spend months and years in retreat, sitting for at least a dozen hours a day. Okay. So he studied that, and he's devoted his life really to that particular goal. And that's the conclusion he's come to. So I'm not interested in analyzing that or anything. It's not about analysis. You do it and you find out for yourself. But the point is, I really want to make this distinction between that type of meditation, which is for concentration, and the type of meditation that I can honestly say, more interested in, although that doesn't really make sense in a sense, is mindfulness. It doesn't make sense to be more interested in one than the other because the mindfulness that we're doing, the mind training we're doing, uses both of these methods. Okay. But I don't put a lot of emphasis on this pure concentration thing um, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, there's one thing I agree with Alan about is that it really is a retreat situation. If you really want to develop deep concentration, you go into retreat. You cut yourself off from all those stimulating things like people and TV and food, and you simplify your life as much as possible, and that aids in your development of concentration. Um, my experience, I never spent years at it, but I spent several weeks in meditation in several places. And the big deciding one for me, I've mentioned before, was in Sri Lanka, where I was in this wonderful retreat and I developed some wonderful mental powers, so I thought, um, until the day I came to leave. And I walked out of the compound in slow motion. My whole mind was just like mud. It was not in a bad way, in a good way. It was just, I had the opportunity to see and experience almost everything that was going on. Each footstep, each movement of my hand to scratch, whatever. I come out of the compound, I'm waiting in the dust by the side of the road, and then this bus comes along, roaring, spewing diesel, full of people and uh, hens and cockerels and sheep, and it was just completely normal life. That's how things are. And in that instant, my focus went, and I thought, how am I going to get that back? And it didn't really come back, not in the same way. I mean, that evening I sat down in my room where I was staying, and my meditation was not bad, but I'd lost something. Now, what I mean by this, what I mean by telling you this story, is to point out that your state of concentration and focus is not just up to you. It depends on your circumstance, it depends on your surroundings, your context, your environment, the people around you, the busyness in your life. So when you say, as so many people do, oh, I have terrible concentration, I can't do this, I'm awful, and they put themselves down, it's really not fair. It's not just a matter of your decision. You become focused by focusing your whole life, by focusing literally the cell that you live in, if you want to get down to that. So you can go ahead and do that sort of meditation. And it's a great exercise. But by itself, it's not really going to transform you. The transformation comes from that next step, one I mentioned before, which is noting. Okay. And that changes the whole equation here. Because when you meditate, you have this clear goal. I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to develop my concentration. Anything that gets in the way, I'm going to leave behind. No, not that. No, not that. Come back to the breath, or back to the image, whatever you're meditating on. So it's rigid and it's goal oriented. And those two aspects of being rigid and goal oriented, they work together very well because that's how you develop it. But as I say, it's not just a matter of you're in a decision, in a practice. It also depends on your circumstance. Now, mindfulness is very different because we sit down and we take a breath and we use that breath to become calm and peaceful. So we are concentrating, definitely. We're using that aspect of mind. But then when we notice that we've lost attention, then what we want is a state of curiosity, which is why? What happens? What's going on? Okay, well, I'm thinking about I got to make some buns this afternoon. Okay, I've run out of buns. I actually do. So that's the thought I have, and I put that away and then I go back to the breath. So I've taken an interest here. I've now got two goals. One goal is to focus on the breath, but the other goal is to realize what distracted me, to notice the distractions. And I've often said that the real purpose of what we do here is to know your distractions. People see them as an obstacle or a problem, as something to be avoided, something they can't face, they can't stand. I understand. I feel the same way sometimes. But this is where the value lies here, when we really see the way that we are, as opposed to the way we want to be, then our whole attitude changes. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see our whole life for what it is. So whereas meditation is about something very formal, you might sit in a very cross-legged position with full lotus, there are many, there's the whole lists of different postural things that you have to keep in mind to do perfect meditation posture, okay, if you want to go that far. So you can sit there and you follow this set of rules, and you aim at this single goal, which is increased concentration, more and more concentration. And in there, you might have this sort of back thought, which is, well, if I keep doing this, I'll be more concentrated in the rest of my life, which may be true. But what's more important is that you have more attention to this what's going on in here during the rest of your day when you're out there. Mindfulness is about real life. Meditation is about practice. Mindfulness is openness. Okay, it's not goal-oriented. Even though as we go about our day, we are goal-oriented. What do I have to do this afternoon? I have a couple of chapters to write on a book I'm working on. Okay. Short chapters should be okay. I know what I'm doing, I think. So that's my goal. But as I go about it, I'm looking at, well, I feel I'm getting stuck here and I can't afford to get stuck. I feel uncomfortable. This paragraph is going to upset my plans. See, so right in there, I see already there's a potential cause of upset here. I'm beginning to see a little reactivity clicking into my life. Okay. And that always happens when I've got goals, because whenever you've got a goal, you're going to have obstacles, because that's the way life is. There's always something. And you probably overcome those obstacles because you're an extremely competent human being with a massive brain. It's a good thing. So you can do it, but to do it consciously, to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, that's mindfulness. And that's what enables you to evaluate your life in a moral way. Am I doing it right? Am I being the best that I can be? Am I caring and compassionate? Okay. Underlying statement, I should be. Okay. So there's a should. But this is a should that comes from our own experience in our own life. It's not a should from the people around us. And it's not a should in us trying to live up to their expectations or to please people. Okay. It's an ethic with foundation in our own life. And that foundation does not come from concentration alone. You can't do that. Concentration is ethically neutral. Okay. It's as simple as that. To be a great marksman, to be a great sniper, to be able to shoot people dead from 2 miles away, you have to have excellent concentration. And you can do that. They use those sort of exercises to train marksmen as well. And maybe they're shooting bad people and you can judge that as ethically good, but that's not really the point of our conversation here today. What we're trying to distinguish between is simple strength of mind, okay, which is the concentration, and flexibility of mind, which is mindfulness. And the root of that flexibility lies in those two things that you know so well, non-judgmental and non-expectant. Okay. It's a curious state of mind which allows, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's sit back and see. So meditation stands forward, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to get concentrated. I'm going to focus. Whereas mindfulness sits back. And the reason it's sitting back is because meanwhile, you're doing something else. I'm making my buns. I'm having a conversation with my client. Okay. And that's active and that's goal oriented. But at the same time, behind that, there's this mindful part of me, which is just looking and saying, oh, look how you're dealing with this. How's that working out? Oh, there's that pattern I recognize. Okay. So is this multitasking? Not really, because we're present in the same moment, doing the same thing, but there's a somewhat different attitude towards it. So that goal-oriented state of mind, which we need to get stuff done in the world, is right there and it's working. But the mindfulness is also here observing it. So that's a very different thing from practicing concentration. You're open, you're free, you're leaning back, you're not interfering. Even while a part of your mind is working, and I know it sounds complicated, but hey, that's the way we are. We do that. We can do it. You do it every day because you're practicing mindfulness, you're cultivating mindfulness. And that's the word I want to talk about this week. Cultivate, cultivation, bhavana. It's the word that is usually translated as meditation. But that's not the word it means. And in fact, if you had to translate the word meditation back into Pali or Sanskrit, you'd have trouble. Because that's not what the word that the Buddha used all the time was bhavana. Cultivating, he used the metaphor of a farmer or even a potter who cultivates his skills while he's making pots, or a fletcher who cultivates his skill as he makes arrows. Mm. So we're cultivating this skill of life. We're making it into a skill. We're giving it moral structure. And we're doing this for ourselves, from our own experience, not by closing our eyes to the world around us, but by using our own experience to be able to filter what we hear and see. So that there's some personal element, something of us involved in these decisions about how we should be, what we should judge right and wrong, who we should vote for, what sort of laws we should support or deny. When we just accept it, then, I mean, apart from anything else, we're taking a risk because we don't know who in our world is evil and who is good. But we can be sure that there is both, that we have to be aware, we have to be awake. So mindfulness is not optional, not really, not in the long term, unless you want to just escape, go into retreat, cultivate that concentration, not think about all the bad stuff and stay there until you die. You can do that. People do. But for me, mindfulness is a bigger, grander, more compassionate, more caring, more worthwhile goal. And there, you see, I just called it a goal. And of course, it is a goal because, just before 12 o'clock, we all make a point of logging online and getting ready to do our little half-hour meditation, discourse, listening, whatever. And that's the goal. But in the bigger picture, what we're looking at is just how to live, how to be in the best possible way. Okay, make yourselves comfortable. Take a breath. Take a few breaths. Decide how you're going to treat that breath. as concentration or as noting. And maybe you don't know the difference. Maybe for now, that's okay. Stay with the breath. Trust your instincts. You practice. You trust meditation and mindfulness. You cultivate them. They're part of your mind, your being. You allow those skills to be present and more. You value them. And you feel the breath. You sense the breath. And you know the breath in any way you want. In any way that this moment presents it to you. Knowing that not all of these choices are up to you. Life simply presents stuff, and you have to deal with it. And you have this tool, this space inside that you create. It is your middle way. It's your reference point. So you take this time, these precious minutes of retreat from the world, to focus and find your center and be complete. And to remind yourself that this space is here. It's available to you. You've created. You maintain it. You develop it. And no one else can take this away from you. This is yours. And it does require maintenance. You have to keep at it. Keep going. Keep living. And now, taking 3 more breaths, open your eyes.